Conversations podcast with your host, Nicole Luongo. These episodes are brought to you by cerebralpalsyconference.org. Well, do I have a treat for you today? You guys better buckle your seatbelts because it's going to be a wild ride. I am so excited to introduce my guest to you. His name is Jacob Pacheco, and he created Prone to Ride with a mission to empower others to discover their best. Jacob was born with cerebral palsy, and he successfully thrives despite any challenges. Throughout Jacob's life, he's faced incredible adversity, including bullying, medical setbacks, abuse, and clinical depression. Despite this, Jacob turned disability and adversity into opportunity. Against the odds, Jacob has proven you can prevail and discover fulfillment despite challenges. Prone to Ride is the result of commitment through adversity to discover your best and keep charging forward. So welcome.
Thank you for having me, Nicole. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's such an honor. It really, really is. You know, we just met each other recently, and when I heard your story, I said, this guy is really compelling and people are really going to want to hear what you have to say. So with that having been said, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you grew up and the challenges you faced as a young child?
That's a great question. So some of the challenges I faced growing up, I was born with spastic diplegia cerebral palsy. I was diagnosed, I believe, around 3 to 6 months of age. I remember looking at my baby pictures, and my mom and I had a discussion about it. She was like, looking at your pictures now, she's like, I can see your feet doing what cerebral palsy kids do, but I just didn't really connect the dots until you were older. So I thought that was very interesting. She was very candid about it. But you know how parents are and how people are hard on themselves, where they're like, I should have known this, I should have done this. It's like, we really don't know, right? You have to be a little bit more kind to yourself. And that's kind of a background story for my life, is I've had to learn how to be kind to myself, because I was often caught between two different worlds. We're talking about the non-adaptive world and the adaptive world, and being caught in between there, where you're a little bit too capable or too disabled for either one. So you're walking this gray line, often trying to find your place in the world. And often it results in, internal abuse, like being hard on yourself. I'm not good enough for this. I'm not good enough for that. I'm not capable. And it gets very degrading and very, very nasty if you allow it to. But as with anything, it's a revolution. It's a circle. It always comes back, to square one. And that's something that I had to learn. And so I've learned how to incorporate disability as a part of my lifestyle, while also not letting it be a controlling aspect to what I want to be, who I am, and how I see myself, and how the world sees me. So it's been a wonderful ride. It's been a wild ride. This week has probably been one of the craziest ones I've had in the last year, but it's really gratifying. I'm really humbled, and I'm excited to be here. So thank you again, Nicole, for bringing me on.
Yeah, and like I like to say about you is that you're making waves in and out of the water, and we'll get to that a little later. But I'm interested in the part about, bullying, because a lot of people with disabilities, and children especially, when you go to school or anything when you're young, it's rough out there. So what happened to you?
Oh, it can be very vicious. I unfortunately had a lot of episodes of physical and verbal abuse, where I was beaten by other kids on playgrounds and things like that. And I was targeted because I was different. And it was very difficult to digest and understand, why is this happening to me? I didn't ask to be born this way. I didn't ask to look this way, but yet I'm still treated as though I'm less than human. And when you ask people that you love as a child, like a parent, like, why is this happening, and what's going on? And they can't answer those questions for you. Now you're diving into something much deeper and much more dark. right? And that's where you see a darker side of humanity. But again, with that darker side, there's a chance for you to actually reflect and see if you can find a way to move past that.
How
So
old were you
yes,
when this started? If I can just interrupt.
5 to 6 years old. I was very, very young.
Wow.
Um, so it was something that I grew up with and I'm used to, and that's really sad to say, but because I grew the thick skin for it, it allowed me to push past it. Now I'm not saying that the trauma is completely gone, because it's not. The trauma remains, but the healing is what's the most important part of that. And if we can heal with our traumas, then we can actually progress forward with our lives and what we want to do. Whether you have a disability or you have issues with depression or you have challenges in your life that you're not used to, like maybe you're dealing with credit card debt, maybe you're dealing with trying to keep your family together. Like these are all opportunities to reflect, to grow, to answer some hard questions to yourself, for yourself, and then move past it.
How did you process that at such a young age?
It's not something that I would recommend for anybody. It's just a really dark moment when you're literally have a bloody nose and you're laying face down in grass and you're tasting the mud and nobody's around you and they all kind of left. They allowed it to happen and you're left there alone. The questions keep popping up in your head of why did this happen or why did that happen? And then the other question that pops up as well is like, do you really want to keep your face in that dirt? Do you really want to keep tasting the dirt? And the reality is, no, nobody really wants to keep tasting that. So you have to make the decision to put your hand next to your body and push up off of the ground, metaphorically and literally, and bring yourself up off of that floor.
But as you got older, did you start fighting back, or did you have friends at that time when you were older that people maybe stuck up for you?
Um, it happened as I grew older, so it just transitioned to something else. So uh, we talk a lot about inclusion, especially in today's modern society. And inclusion, when I was younger, was a much different type of way of doing things. So, for example, I went to school at elementary school, and there was a game that was played, and it was called Deck Woblets. And my nickname was Woblets. So you can actually connect the dots there. So I was involved in that game. It was very, very simple. When the kids would yell out deck woblets, that was the start of the game, to where I had to drop whatever I was doing and run for my life. Otherwise, I was going to get pummeled into the wood chips and get tackled like a football player without pads. Now, you're shaking your head like that's nasty and bad and everything, but actually, I truly enjoyed that game because I was involved, because I was part of something bigger than myself and actually had friends. Now, there was people there that were the tacklers, and then there was the other section that were the guardians. And so you'd have these kids like banging into each other, making sure that I wouldn't get hit, or they would like be protecting me. And I got really good. I got really good at dodging people because I didn't want to get hit. But inclusion meant a little something different at that time. And so, uh, as fun as that game was, it also had a damaging effect on my self confidence, my self worth, my own perception of who I was, because I was allowing people to say, or I was allowing people to literally tell me it's okay for you to get pushed down into the wood chips. And so that's a really difficult thing to like actually grow out of, but it can be done.
And how did cerebral palsy or having cerebral palsy play into all of that?
It's a difference that I think all of us have at one point or another. I see disability as a degree of separation between humans. We all have degrees of separation, but that doesn't necessarily take away from our humanity. We all have feelings, we all have ears, we all have eyes, hearts, and minds. We think, we cry, we feel the same emotions. How we interpret those emotions are a little bit different. So disability for me was a degree of separation that forced me to confront a lot of my emotional pain and my mental pain much sooner than I was probably willing to. But it led me to this moment right now on your podcast. So I would say that it's worked out well.
And did that lead to the depression that you referenced in your bio?
Yeah, it was a combination of both all of the actions that had occurred in my life up to that point, both childhood, adulthood, just all of that fostering together and not being willing to accept who I was and not being willing to accept who I saw myself as. And that resulted in a downward spiral that required a lot of internal reflection and growth.
Did you have any help in terms of therapy or a counselor or anything like that?
Of course, you always have to have a community around you, a support network that doesn't just represent therapists or doctors. They do help. Professional help is extremely important. If you can get professional help, get it. It's really, really wonderful to have somebody who understands human emotion on a much deeper and more scientific level. And that's important. But I will also say that my friends were just as important. My family was just as important. They would literally call me, take their time to make sure that I was okay. Prone to Ride really started because I had a late night conversation with one of my classmates who is now one of my best friends. He helped me start Prone to Ride. He was like, why don't you become a professional athlete? Why don't you start a brand? Why don't you do this? And I was like, what do you mean? What I don't believe you. I don't think I can do this. He's like, you're an idiot. Like, you can do this, like he was like, you inspire people just by being yourself. And I was like, you're full of shit, and that's how it happened. And it was never my goal to inspire people. It was my goal to empower people. I think there's a difference, because I think once you're empowered, you're inclined to take action for yourself. And that's really the most important thing, in my opinion, to creating the kind of life that you want, is which is taking action.
So how do you feel about inspiration porn?
I think it has its place. I think it's healthy. Some people need it, and that's fine. It's fine. I personally just want to not only inspire, but empower you. Even if that means you're just getting up to get a glass of water for that day. Like, it's simple stuff. If it empowers you to go and start your own business or do something grand and have a vision for, that's great as well. But it all relates to your perspective. It all relates to those types of things.
Right, I agree with you. Is there anybody along this journey who inspired you to change your mindset?
There's a lot of people that have inspired me. There's my mentors who have been there with me from day one. There are also mentors that have come in later in my life, like business leaders, that have really taught me how to think differently, prepare differently, and elevate, my business and my ideas further. And then you have the friends that have just given me their time by sending me a text, just saying, "What's up, man?" or "How are you?" And so I've tried to pay that forward and reach out to the people that I know could use a text every once in a while, or just talk.
Can I get on that list, please?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
No, I'll
send you messages.
I want our audience to know that he's a great guy. He made time to come on here. This is a new project, a new endeavor, and I really appreciate it. And while I'm saying that, let me remind everybody to click subscribe and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to know more about the Cerebral Palsy Conference that takes place once every year in October, check out our website. Everything's going to be coming across your screen up there or down there or somewhere. So just check us out. But back to my incredible guest. Your story is just, I think it's not a rare story, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Growing up different, as you said, I'm sure we can talk to people that we know, including myself, where I was made fun of because I was different and teased and all that. So what you went through is it's really heartbreaking to hear. And can
Mhm.
you imagine if that would have happened now with all the bullying that goes on social media?
Mhm. I still think it occurs. We just don't hear that much about it, which is the really sad part. I speak openly about it because I know it happens, and I want to let those people know that are experiencing abuse, whatever it may look like, that you don't have to take it.
No,
You really
exactly.
you really don't. You can hit block. You can remove that toxicity out of your life. If you allow it to remain, if you allow that toxicity to remain in your life, it festers, it grows, and it can destroy a lot of good things in your life. So I experienced it myself. And I'm telling you right now, if you're not going to hear anything else out of this podcast but this, don't allow the toxicity to control your life. Take it out of your life. You have that control. You have that power. Yeah, I think it's beautiful, and I think that you are creating your own type of change as well. I mean, I'm really proud of you for trying to make the White House green for Cerebral Palsy Day, which I think is amazing. I mean, not a lot of people would take that on, and you're trying, and you've actually got a lot of people who are behind you now with cerebral palsy, and other people as well without adaptive needs, and it's fantastic.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. You're just so kind. And speaking of when you talked about prone to ride and your friend who said, "Hey, why don't you just do this professionally?" You weren't always surfing. You had a career in another industry. Tell us about
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, so I started surfing in 2014 as a hobby, as for recreational purposes. Like I was doing it for enjoyment. Um, but I moved down to Southern California specifically to work in professional sports. It was my goal because I couldn't play sports, so I decided to work in sports. And I was on my way. I was doing really well. I was working for the LA Galaxy, which is a professional sport franchise in Los Angeles, as a camp coach. And I was making my way up there. I had met a few people that understood a few things about professional sport, and I was also working in Division One sports as well, as a front office administrator. So I was doing both of those things and going to school full time in graduate school. So it was a lot. There was a lot on my plate, and I just realized that something had to change because I wasn't happy, and I was also informed that there was just going to be this permanent cap on what people would see from me as far as my ability to contribute to the overall goal of making the team better. And I didn't necessarily agree with that. So I had to take a massive risk and stop and transition to something else. Now, a lot of people would not sacrifice that type of security to try something new, especially when they're 25, 26. But what I would say is that there is no right time for you to transition. There is only the time to transition. And the only way it works is if you commit to it, you give it your best. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine, as long as you gave it your best shot. Because I guarantee you the job that you had beforehand will be there when you go back. Like you can find that job at any point in time. There's a really good quote that I often hear. Uh, any job can replace you in a week if it really, really wanted to. So, some of the best advice that I've ever heard is make yourself as irreplaceable as possible. But the reality is, we're all replaceable. But what are you going to do with the time you're given?
Exactly. And I see from what you're telling me and from what I know of you that it's important to you that you do something that is important in the world. You're not just trying to fill time or whatever. You really are on a mission to just help people, and you have
Mhm.
so many different ways that you could help them because they can identify with so many aspects of your story. And I can imagine that people must write to you and also kids as well.
Yeah, I do get a lot of messages from kids, which really empowers me. And I've tried to grow more into my personality on social media. There's often a little bit of sense of like professionalism, and you've created this brand as well. But what I've really noticed more in the last 2 years, I would say, since I've started doing this, is people really relate to authenticity and vulnerability and realness. And sometimes that requires me to put on some Kendrick Lamar and blast that and enjoy it because that's part of my personality. Um, I grew up uh, in tough neighborhoods. I grew up in tough places. I've experienced a lot of tough things in life, and so music is one of my ways of communicating or expressing that. And sometimes people don't always like the music you listen to, but if that's the real and authentic me, and I'm not talking about it, I'm not posting about it, then am I giving credence to who I am or am I not? So it's a balancing act. So I would say it's okay to be authentically you and be vulnerable because people will accept you or they won't, and it really doesn't matter either way.
You basically left your day job because you realized that you were not happy at the young age. Not that you're a toddler or anything, but to give people reference, I'm going to be 48 years old, so I don't. There's just an age difference, but from what I see out there, most people cannot do that. I don't care what age they are, but let alone 25 to say, you know what, like I thought I wanted to do this, but it's not making me happy. So that's okay. You took the good parts of that part of your journey, and you took them with you, but you decided that you were ready to do something else. How did you pick the something else to be building a brand and being on social media?
That's a great question. How I came to that decision wasn't easy. It was really about what makes me most happy. I think happiness is really, really important. But how you attain happiness, from what I have learned and who I've been around, including Tony Robbins, it really centers around two different aspects: gratitude and fulfillment. And they're both tied with each other. So the more gratitude you have, the more fulfilled you become. The more fulfilled you are, the more purpose you have. The more purpose you have, the more driven you are, the more passionate you become. If you're grateful for the things you have in your life, it's going to create a lot more goodness in your life. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be grateful every second of every day, and it's not possible. Please do not mishear that, because that's not reality. That's not humanity. That doesn't speak to our humanity. But what I will say is if you can be more consistent with your gratitude and fulfillment, there's definitely the ability to move forward. But let me get back to your original question. I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent there. Um, what really made me decide to do this was the possibility of being able to help a lot more people than what I was already doing at the time. And to me, that meant more to me. And I was willing to sacrifice now to get more later. Um, there's
Wait,
a
let's stop. We gotta repeat that because that was like a tweetable moment or something. Repeat that. I want everybody to hear because that's very important.
I sacrificed a lot now to gain more later.
How did you even come to that conclusion that you had a choice to do what that? Because it's so easy to just get on the hamster wheel.
That's a good question. There's no easy way to come to that decision. It really comes down to your own personal perspective, your own personal decisions. What do you want? What are you willing to sacrifice to go get it? And are you willing to commit to that? And there was no guarantee that this would work out. I just had the belief and the commitment and the process, or the idea that refining my process would work. And it's not happened overnight. It's been 4.5 long grinding years. I've had some help along the way.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some help along the way, and all of those people that are listening to it right now, who are my friends, are going to know exactly who I'm talking about. And also the community that I've built, because without the community that I've built, and wouldn't have connected me to you, and it wouldn't put me in the position that I'm in today. So it's a lot of balancing act, but I believed enough in my own abilities to make it happen, and I
That's
was
so
willing.
critical. Belief is
Mhm.
so critical because it could take you right out of the game if you don't believe.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. You got to be willing to accept. You also have to be willing to accept the other side of the coin as well.
And what
If
did
you
you give
fail,
up? What were you willing to give up to try this new venture?
I was willing to give up my stability and security, which for some people that is a lot. I will say this though. One thing I've learned in the last year and a half, stability and security relates to perspective. Stability and security means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but most likely it means financial stability, finances. To me, stability and security relates to the individual. For me, I'm stable and I'm secure because I know that no matter what happens in my life, I'll be able to make it through it because of my all of my past experiences have led me to this moment, and I've gotten through a lot of stuff. I've I've been through some tough times like living out of my car, eating canned food out of my car. I was able to do that in the dead heat of Central California in 100-degree weather. Nowhere to hide. I couldn't even get underneath a tree. I was able to do that when I was much younger than I am now. If I can do that, I'm pretty sure I can leave a couple of jobs to make something happen and being willing to sacrifice.
Wow.
If you understand what's available to you as well, the resources you have to make your life a little bit easier, then you're winning the game. You're winning the game.
Yeah, and you certainly know how to win. That's for sure. So I need to ask you this about surfing. Since you have cerebral palsy, how in the world, it takes a lot of balance to surf. How in the world are you able to do this?
I would say that I surf prone, so I surf laying down. And the thing is that you have to focus on controlling your breathing, and being grounded in the moment. And I'm not saying that that's easy because it's not, especially when you have a huge wall of dark water coming right at your face to crush you. You have to be present in the moment, control that breath to get over that wave to see beyond it, what's past it.
So it
And that's a
basically
metaphor for
parallels your
life.
life. We just were saying that's exactly what you went through in your own life. And I know you're a
Mhm.
modest guy, but I'm going to let everybody know that you are the top 8 out of 80 surfers in the world.
I would say that I do okay. I would say that I do all right.
Well, for somebody who just decided at age 25 that you were going to go pro in a sport, I mean, that's remarkable.
It's grown quite a bit since I first started out. I'm really grateful for the community. I'm really grateful for all of the competitors that keep us pushing further and harder. There's a lot of good ones. Any of the guys that I know that I've competed against, when they're having an on day, they can beat a lot of people, including myself, because they have beaten me a few times.
But how does the industry respond to you as somebody with a disability?
As far as the professional surf industry, they don't recognize adaptive surfing that much. So adaptive surfing has developed its own core of athletes, its own events. I have to say that the entrepreneurship, the vision, and the dedication to progressing the sport is one of the few that I have seen in my entire life. These guys literally find ways to get sponsorships for events, compile prize money, invite good talent out to the events. The talent shows up to these events, and then it breeds that competitive spirit to raise the level of competition in the venue. Let's be clear. If you go to a sporting event, you need to see talent. You have to see talent because people want to be wowed. They don't want to be inspired. They want to be inspired, but they want to be wowed. Like, there's a reason why people love to hate Tom Brady, and they
And
also
what
love
is
him at the
that?
same time because he knows how to win, and he also provides a lot of wow moments. But
Yeah.
it's the same thing with adaptive sport. But I will say that the level of entrepreneurship in this industry is second to none, really. I mean, we started with no events in 2016, 17, and now we have eight
Are you
professional.
competing in adaptive or non-adaptive?
We compete in adaptive. So the adaptive surf league is its own, like, the adaptive crew is its own professional, like, thing. We pay ourselves.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That
So they
that's really that's gotta be challenging in so many ways. But I want to get to something that's going to be happening soon. Because now you're a motivational speaker. So on top
Mhm.
of all this other stuff that you do, surfing professionally and building a brand and being out there online helping people, where did motivational speaking come in?
I think speaking is one of my strongest points. I don't hesitate to talk in front of people, but what I like to do is communicate ideas for others to connect with and place themselves into those stories to actually go do something and take action. So I do have something huge coming up this week on Friday, February 12th, 2021, will be my TED Talk. And it's a TEDx talk, I should say. But I still see the TED and I'm like, so there we go.
That's amazing. Congratulations. And I want to know, as someone who has a background in public speaking, what was that process like? Did you apply and then they select you and then you ultimately give the speech?
Yeah, so it took from when I started to now, it's been about a 9 month process. So it's been a long
Really?
time. Yeah, it's been a long time.
I
So
don't
how
think
I
people realize that. They think it comes around quickly, but you're giving us the inside scoop.
Yeah. So I basically recruited myself. I sent out 30 to 40 emails to every single TED Talk or TEDx talk in California in the dead of summer when everything was shut down in COVID. So I literally went to the TEDx talks and I just started emailing every single one of them.
This was last
And
year during
yeah.
COVID.
Mhm.
Okay, everybody needs to take a lesson and listen to what Jacob is saying because he made it happen. I'm someone who I've done some of that myself, so we have a lot in common. But
Mhm.
I want everybody to just pay attention to what you just said. You obviously had a goal. You wanted to speak on the
Mhm.
TED stage, the TEDx stage, and you said, you know what? I don't really know how I'm supposed to do that, but hey, there's got to be people out there. They book people and you find those people and you write to them, and that's what you did. And what was the response like, and did it take a long time for you to get a response?
Yes. So in over the course of 1 month, I sent out about 1,000 emails.
You're
Um,
serious?
Yeah, because it included all of the public schools in Southern California, in the LA area, Carlsbad, Encinitas, San Diego, Central California, and Northern California. So I sent out about a lot of those, emails I sent out to schools and school districts and principals, and I could see how many were opened, how many were clicked. So that was cool. And I also went to the TEDx site. So what I realized in summer was I really, really want to be a professional speaker. That is what I'm good at. That is what I'm great at. But if I want the speaking opportunities, I have to go get them. You don't just pull them off
They don't just
trees.
land in your lap.
Yeah. They only land in your lap if you're Gary Vee or if you're Tony Robbins or
Mm-hmm.
after you developed that rapport
Yep.
and you've delivered on the results, if you've
Yep.
delivered the results, then those opportunities start to come. Until that point,
You
it's a
gotta
lot of
hustle.
exactly. You have to hustle. So it took about a month, and I think the percentage of responses was about 1%, 1 to 2%. So you need to be okay with that. You have to be okay with hearing a lot of no's or no answers. But frankly, that's their problem. They miss out.
They sure
And
did.
yeah. And then when they come back and ask you for another event, you can pretty much say yes, or you might be able to name your number at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So who did say yes? What did you go to a different state, or were you in your own state of California?
It was in my own state of California. I had to keep it very simple because I understood logistically wise, I can go anywhere in California. I will drive there. I don't care. I will make it happen. But as far as like, I had to keep it contained for the moment. So I just wanted to get more opportunities under my belt. I didn't just email schools either. I emailed Rotary clubs, Lion
Like,
clubs.
mm-hmm.
I did everything. Um, and I got a lot of opportunities. And even though they were free or they were like 10 to 12 minutes long,
Mm-hmm.
those are still opportunities to refine your message, to refine your ability to deliver. So that's what happened. And I applied to 30 different TEDx talks, heard back from 5, applied to 5, got accepted to 2, and then chose 1.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, I don't even think you understand how incredible you are, because when you're somebody who likes to pursue their goals and you go after what you want, I think a lot of times people like that. I have some of those traits, but you just took it to a whole other level there. But what you did was basically what I did with the Go Green Pursuit campaign. But do you ever stop and think, I did that?
Yes and no. Sometimes I do. Like, yeah, last Friday it started to hit me. Today it's hit me a little bit more. But I'm more of like, what's next? I'm always like, what's next? What's next? What's next? That is also an issue because you need to be able to be present and enjoy what you've earned. And that's a very critical aspect. However, I'm very driven, so I'm like, no, must continue forward. Because I'm a driven human, so I feel like there's always something else to be done. There's always more to be done. Uh,
So where
and
can people find this TED Talk?
They'll be able to find it at www.tedxcsuf.org. It'll be streamed on YouTube. It'll be streamed on their website. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Make sure you send that to me so I can include that in the show notes. And I'm going to remind people that if they want to find you, which you're going to tell me right now where everybody can find you, but this information is also going to be in the show notes so that you can just click on it and go follow him. Because if you want a daily dose of inspiration, he's your guy, and he's also a very sincere person. He really cares about people, and that's one of the things I like about him. So, where can they find you?
They can find me on my website, prone2ride.com, Instagram, prone2ride, TikTok, The Peruvian Truth, which is a little bit more of my funny side. I'm also selling merchandise as well on my website. And I am actually going to be donating 10% of my sales to Shriners Children's Hospital as a thank you for all the work that they helped me with as a child. So I've always wanted to tangibly give back to them, and now this is my opportunity to do so. So any kind of support that you can help me with, it does allow me to keep creating content for free. So every and any order is appreciated. So
That's
thank you ahead of time.
beautiful. Yeah. What was I gonna say? I was thinking of something to ask you or comment on. I know where they can find you on social media. Oh, that's right. You're going live. Aren't you going live tomorrow?
Tonight.
And what will you be talking about tonight?
So tonight I'm going live at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to talk about true dating stories. That's going to be some good ones. And I'm going to be on with Chelsea Bear. She's one of the fastest risers in the adaptive community, and she has a bright future.
Oh, she sure does. She also has cerebral palsy, and fun fact, she and I practically live in the same area. We've never met, but she is from South Florida too. So it's just amazing.
When are you guys gonna hang out?
I don't know. She's coming on the show. I got to get together with her and talk about that. But, I've met her and I've met you. And it's just incredible how we all just we support each other. And we become close in a way that you really can't explain. So I think sometimes, like when you have a disability, that's one thing. But then you get to know the person as a person, which I know is very important to you. So I want to thank you for letting me get to know you and more of who you are, and not just the surfer and the speaker and the content creator, because there's a lot there. Man, I appreciate
lots of different onions, lots of different layers of the onion right there, peeling them off.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thank you so much for coming on to talk to me. And again, I want to remind everybody that this podcast is brought to you by cerebralpalsyconference.org. We just started this because we want to highlight people like Jacob and their families and caregivers and shine a light on cerebral palsy and raise more awareness. So it's just been an honor to talk to him today, and I want all of you to follow him and check out his TEDx talk, because this was just a taste, guys. So you're not going to be disappointed. You're just going to get more of all his fabulousness, if that's even a word. But I just made that word up. So thanks so much. I look forward to talking to you again and to watching. I'm going to be watching it. I'm going to be watching it. I'm going to be sharing it. You know that. So
I appreciate you.
You're definitely going places.
I appreciate you for having me on. I'm just a human trying to live the best life that I can and trying to help others along the way as well. So thank you for the kind words. And to all you people listening out there, thank you for your time as well. And keep getting after it. Keep charging.
Keep moving forward. Keep making waves. Bye, everybody.
See ya.